Right, greetings everybody and welcome to another video. Today we will be taking a look at JP news, such as it is, because it will eventually be global news, of course. And before we start this video, every once in a while I like to pepper in something that is not Wotv related into the start of my videos, and today it's not that. We are going to be talking about something Wotv related, which is to do with, I've basically been told that Orange has left the Wotv streamer / content creator family. And to be fair, Guy is making some awesome sort of Cavaleria videos. I have not been doing that. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I want to do, because everybody's done basically every guide under the sun, so not super interested in doing that. But anyway, sort of Cavaleria aside, this is starting this video out with just like a shout out to everybody who's made content over the years for Wotv and FFB. Of course, FFB is dying very soon on the global side and will continue on the JP side. And there's videos I want to make about that. Also, just because I was a content creator for FFB. That's right, I'm going to be there until the end of that game, too, right up to the end. But anyway, yeah, shout out to all the content creators over the years, ones that I've worked with, such as, Diggs, for example, and more than I can even remember. But everybody who's ever done any video work, it's kind of thankless compared to some other content creator programs for these kind of games. Yeah, shout outs. All of you. But I digress. Let's get on with the show. Starting off with the unit news. Of course, on our thumbnail, so not really much of a surprise. Today's new unit to be revealed is Exia, a character that has been in the game's story for at least a good long while now, that people have been expecting about when she was coming out. And with the inclusion of Sadali, this seems like the perfect time to just get her out there. And get her out there they have done. So, taking a look, Exia is going to be a permanent addition to the pool and a 100 cost water character. This, for a lot of the other years, we seem to be getting a fair amount of non-limited characters this year, which is pretty cool, because a lot of the time it's just limited character, and now, well, we just don't have that. So, taking a look at her, Seer of Oracles is her main job, roughly translated, probably be a little bit different when it comes over to global, along with Shawl's primary job and Time Mage. So an interesting combination of jobs that she will have, painting her to be quite a support-based character, and that is also going to be supported by our kit preview. So let's take a look. Starting off with her limit burst. This limit burst isn't going to sound too impressive at the start. I mean, taking a look at it, has no range on it because it is a support style limit burst, which the last one we saw of them would be, Luciel or Charles. Both of them having more support-based limit bursts, but it's pretty uncommon that we see things like this. Or, I guess there's also healing ones, but this one is more distinctly support. Increase physical and magical damage for characters in range for 4 turns. Increases fire resistance, critical evasion rate. Reduces the target's human killer for 3 turns when an attack hits. Increases own CT. There's a lot in this limit burst, and to be fair, but from initial evaluation, it doesn't seem that impressive. It doesn't have good range on it, despite it being like a diamond AoE, but essentially, just taking a look at it, I'm not overly impressed about it. Like, fire resistance seems to be very much just answering something that water units were already good at, so this unit is supposed to be more in a multi-elemental party. with characters that almost do good enough against fire, but need a little bit of an extra push. Which is interesting. I mean, also critical evasion, just getting around critical hits, and reducing a human killer. I mean, it is essentially more of a defensive limit burst here that we are looking at. And my big question is whether or not the actual numbers are good behind this. I mean, this can be one of those deceptive ones in terms of a limit burst, where you look at it and it just doesn't seem to be doing quite enough, and maybe the combination is weird, but it could actually just be insanely broken when paired with the right combination. So I don't have a super good evaluation of this, at least at the moment, but we'll see how it goes. So next up, our continuous ability. This was also seen with Sadali, so I'm not too terribly surprised to see it here. Part 1. Reduces a certain percentage of single target attack resistance for up to 2 targets, 3 turns. Deals magic damage large after and has a chance of causing the sleep status effect while also casting a secondary ability of a heal. Now, this ability seems pretty promising depending on how good her AI is tuned. It's a very offensive ability with good range on it, single target, so it works well with any kind of removal of single target resistance units that are, wanting that as well, because this will fire off long, at least a pretty good chance before other characters attack, which does put her potentially with Ashen Mont as being quite interesting. Maybe, I do believe, wasn't Sadali like single target as well? But yeah, single target characters should pair off well. And getting a secondary ability of just a heal, it classified as recover HP of allies, small, within the area around herself, and giving a CT boost. I think it's pretty interesting for potentially being quite powerful. Whether her DPS is there or not is another factor, is some of these units that tend to focus on support don't exactly have high enough DPS numbers to go up against a lot of characters that come out recently with good amounts of power. And her last ability, God's Oracle, increase all allies' resistance to AoE attacks, debuffs within range centered around itself for 4 turns. So we have basically a buff to AoE resistance and debuffs, which is not bad. Grants the effect of sealing removal of all buffs for targets for 3 turns when an attack hits, and allows the user to survive even if receives fatal damage. Makes the user less likely to be targeted by enemies, and when HP falls below 20%, increases ET. I might be jumping a little bit ahead. I guess we should also talk about one more thing, which is her master ability, before I give an overall impression. So, master ability also has magic damage reduction, hit rate, and debuff resistance. There's nothing in this unit's kit that seems to indicate that she will be good against burst. And that could be problematic. You're not, unless her DPS is incredibly high, she's not going to be paired with Resnick super well. I think that's way too greedy, way too much support and healing, not enough offense for what is currently being toted around for high-level teams. And I mean, this is one of those things of like, until we test the unit, we won't know how good her actual DPS is. But she seems to be more of an answer to part of the fire problem, which is like dealing specifically with like Crimson Mage and the high DPS that he can potentially output, as he will kind of shut that down and remove any kind of like buff removal is just not possible once she gets rolling. And I mean, she does provide a good amount of support, and who knows, with Time Mage, there is historical instances where Time Mage is generally good to have around if they have Quicken, or, well, let's face it, Haste is still generally really, really strong, and she has interesting bout of support all across the board. I don't see her particularly wanting to be with anything that Water currently has going, which kind of does make me want to throw her in with similarly elemental characters, but with some synergy, but not necessarily like just pure water. And that I think this is a rainbow element character for, I don't know. There are a lot of question marks about this character. She's mid-month. He's post a collaboration, and she seems to be in it specifically aiming to answer at least a collaboration character right on her preview, which, sure, I think that Crimson Mage is really strong, and Mono Fire is definitely really strong, so her coming out is an answer to that. But beyond that, I don't feel like she's an answer to a lot of the other mage-based stuff, and her master ability does seem to put her as just better to throw into groups where you are against mage-based characters. Yeah, this is I feel like a really tough one to evaluate until all the data's out and she's out and we can really test what all of her abilities are doing. I don't think it's easy to make a super good judgment of her. Anyway, so let's move on. Talking about a few other things. Few pieces of upgrades this week. A new arena map that focuses heavily on water-based units, so good for them. And a new piece of equipment for our new character. Of course, when we're talking about Exia, we can basically expect the exact same banners as usual, and the exact same sellable bundle with the character as well, which, you know what? Now we can't really compare it to a Switch anymore, right? Because Switch 2 right around the corner, PS5 Pro, incredibly expensive, so I mean, an Exia just on her own is worth what? It's like 1/5 of a PS5 Pro. Maybe that's good enough for some people. But yeah, this week is essentially just going to be Exia's week by the looks of it. Not much in the way of events or content to get too terribly excited about. And the following week, the last week in September, might be a little bit more interesting just because we are going to see the next Veritas unit. Light Veritas will be coming in a week, and that is something that I am generally excited for. I hope other people are too still. Anyway, so that is the news such as it is. If there's anything else that pops up that looks really interesting, we'll talk about it later. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Take care. See you later.